Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. I am Brittany Roberson, the Choice Neighborhood Initiative Coordinator with Near West Side Partners. Thank you for tuning in into our Wednesday webinar series. All right, so just a couple of updates before we actually jump into our real presentation for our webinar today. If you are a neighbor in the Near West Side looking for signage, we have some for you. So we have neighborhood watch signage. We also have signs for justice and peace. You can reach out to our Near West Side ambassadors at NWSP ambassadors@gmail.com. If you are looking to get some of those signs, we can help you. All right, second big announcement. This week, we are having 2 webinars. So join us also this Friday. We will be joined by Alderwoman Shantia Lewis for a conversation on reckless driving in the city of Milwaukee. That will be, again, this Friday, July 17th at 2 p.m. So for those of you who regularly attend the webinar, you should have received a link about that, just letting you know that it is happening. Please feel free to join us. Of course, it will be streamed on Facebook, so you will be able to watch it on Facebook also. All right, and just a reminder, safer at home, wear your mask. So resources for COVID-19, please visit the Near West Side Partners website. We have a whole page dedicated just to COVID-19 resources. Please remember to wash your hands and stay healthy. All right, so on to our big topic of discussion today. So today we are joined by Dameon Ellzey, representative from Alderman Stanford's office, which also covers part of the boundaries of the Near West Side. So he will be joining us today for a conversation about the Black Lives Matter movement and how it is impacting legislation. So welcome, Dameon. How are you doing today?
I am doing excellent, Brittany. How are you today?
Pretty good, pretty good. All right, so here's where we'll start. Why don't you give people some background into you and then into the office of the Alderman, just to give people a feel of what you do in case people don't know.
Okay. Once again, my name is Dameon Ellzey. I am the legislative assistant for Alderman Stanford, the 15th district. The 15th district goes from 51st Street on the west side to the expressway on the east, from Beliche Street to Locust, with a little bit of some jagged edges in there in between, but that's pretty much it. We've been in office for 6 years, since 2014, when Willie Hines stepped down in the middle of his term. We took over those first 2 years and we had to run again. This last time we didn't have an opponent, which speaks to, I guess, the job that we're doing in the district, that people think we're doing a good enough job that nobody wants to change us out. So that's good. As a legislative assistant, I handle the daily aspects of the office. I deal with constituents on a daily basis, as does the Alderman, Ruseel Stanford, who is also one of my best friends. We've been friends since 3rd grade. Before I became a legislative assistant, I was building inspector for the city of Milwaukee for 14 years. I also ran Russell's campaign for county supervisor and the campaigns for mayor. And so when not mayor, maybe Freudian slip. Anyway, when he became alderman, he asked me to come over to work with him because I've been in the city for so long. I know the ins and outs. And so I agreed upon to do that. And that's where we stand right now. I also am a community activist, first and foremost. That's what I was doing for years before I became a legislative assistant in City Hall. I am also an artist as well, so I'm deeply involved in the community, and I enjoy living in Milwaukee and being part of the community.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing that. All right, so some housekeeping things that I realized that I did not touch upon when we started. If you have questions, because as you can see, your mics are muted. But if you have questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat boxes for us, whether that's on Zoom or Facebook. We are monitoring both. So once our question and answer section comes up, we'll get those all read off for you. All right, so you ready for these questions?
I'm always ready. Let's go.
All right, so our first question. First question. All right, so across the country, in the world, we have seen a push to address the inequities faced by Black lives and Black communities. What calls to action have you received from your district?
Well, let me just say that prior to the unfortunate death of George Floyd on May 25th in Minnesota, when all of this stuff started happening across the world and we saw where we are now, what took place, the movement that took place after May 25th, we had been on a Black Lives Movement type of momentum prior to that. So it just didn't start with us with the untimely death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and people like that. What we have been doing, and I can just point to some things in like last year's budget cycle, we wanted to take money from the police. People are screaming, defund the police, all of that. That's nothing new. We wanted to take money from the police and provide it to other sources to do crime prevention on the front end of it. And by that, I mean, try to prevent crime before it happens. Provide that money to other sources to get out into communities and do the work beforehand, provide jobs, provide opportunities, provide resources for our community so that crime isn't the first option, it's the last option. We also had that, some of that stuff went through, but then again, some of it, because the moment wasn't right, it didn't go through. Hopefully this year in the budget cycle, those same things will go through because it seems like the moment is right now for that. We also had legislation that we wanted to put in that would have any misconduct. When the city gets sued because of police misconduct, it comes out of the city's budget and then it's passed on to the constituents. What we wanted to do was to have that come out of their pension fund. So if the police get sued, they pay for it, which would be only right. It didn't really work. But right now, in this moment, hopefully it does. We also had last year and the years before that, cop houses. We saw there being a need for community and police relations. We saw there being a lack of that. So what we wanted to do was have cop houses. And by cop houses, if you know anything about it, it's something that originated in Racine, something that they do down there, which is a smaller community. And people say, oh, it's a small community and it wouldn't work here. What we wanted to do was to do that same model here, where we would take houses, put them in the middle of the block and provide resources to the community and make that police officer who's on the beat in that community an actual part of the community. So the people can get to know that police officer, those police officers that work in those cop houses, and maybe we could begin to knock down the walls that stand between the police and the community as far as police relations. Right now, it may be too far, but had we done it then maybe we could have stopped some of the stuff that's going on now. Those are just three of the things that we had done prior to May 25th, as it appears for George. Sorry, my phone rang. As it appears that people are followed in for George Floyd. We have also, now what was the question again? I got off. What are we doing now? Okay, let me get back to so I talked about doing before. Let me talk about what we are doing now. Now, with Black Lives Matter, the whole thing is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. We have, in our office, passed 2 pieces of legislation to help along those lines. One of them being the I Can't Breathe legislation. Might be What that legislation means and what it calls for is that if the police are arresting someone or detaining someone and that person says, I can't breathe, the police immediately have to call for backup. They have to make sure that this person is given the opportunity to allow themselves to be able to breathe. As simple as that may seem, and as logical as that may seem, we've seen, even with George Floyd and a bunch of other cases throughout the country, and even in Milwaukee, where that's not the case. Somebody says they can't breathe, they say, oh, you can talk, you can breathe. Oh, I don't care if you can't breathe, pretty much. What this legislation does is make it so that they are mandated to get help. We've had a situation here in the county jail where a young guy, because he said he couldn't breathe and required medical attention, and they didn't get it for him. So what this does, again, is make it mandatory that they get medical attention when that happens. And if they are doing any type of moves on that person, because chokeholds aren't allowed anyway, but if they're doing any other type of move on that person, that they have to stop and allow that person time to breathe. We've also just passed something called the Police Complaint Database. And what that does is that allows for, if you get pulled over by a police officer, you can look at his badge number or request his badge number or whatever the case may be, and then you can look up, like it's a CCAP for police officers. We got it anytime we get something happen to us. So then you can look it up and you can see that the complaints that this police officer has had against them, any type of complaints. And what that does is allows transparency. And from our office and from a lot of different offices within the Common Council, a lot of the Black Order people, that's what we've been asking for, is transparency, the ability to be able to see all of it. And what transparency does is allows for trust to be built. Trust to be built between the police, trust to be built between the community and the police. We've had Nakia and Malele offer up that if a police officer is being investigated, that they don't get paid anymore. If you're being investigated for murder, you can't take a paid vacation for 6 months while this trial takes place and still get paid from the city. You're being investigated for murder. You go sit down someplace. You can't get this money, pretty much. We've had also Nakia and Cogs put forth the FPC to take over internal affairs investigations so that the police aren't investigating themselves, because too many times the blue protects the blue. And when that happens, you don't get justice. For the first time, the FPC asked that charges be filed against a police officer. That just happened. And that's all because of the Black Lives Matter movement and those that are protesting in the streets. Those are direct correlations to that. We've also had, we all know what happened on 40th Street, where the house was burned down, the community took over. But because of that, we had a communication filed by Russ and Malele, whereas they are asking what happened. What happened? Communication files, people say, what does that mean? Communication files mean we're asking for that department to come forth and say, tell us exactly what happened. What took place? What did you do? Why did that happen? Why did it end up the way that it ended up? And on the one on 40th Street, I was out there earlier in the morning, so I understood what took place, and I was able to relay that to both of them. And they decided to get a communication file, which is needed. Like, why when our little Black girls go missing, why isn't there an Amber Alert? Why can't we get some type of press release asking for the community to help? Too many times they're deemed as runaways. That's a whole nother subject, a whole nother webinar we can have. My man Khalif Rainey did the minority impact statement. And what that means is that anytime any legislation is brought forth, that legislation, the community or an order person can ask, how does that legislation affect the minorities in this community? What is going to be the impact of that legislation upon the community? And all of that stems from the action that has been taking place in the streets with the protests, with the Black Lives Matter. So those are the things that the Common Council and our office have been working on as it relates to Black Lives Matter as far as legislation. Straightforward. Am I talking too much?
I mean, you definitely went into some of the other questions I have for you, but that's perfect. I'm not.
Well, question, my bad. My bad.
No, it is okay. That was wonderful. So again, for those who are listening in, if you have questions, go ahead and drop those in for us into the chats, and we will get to them once we get to Q&A. So I think that having you on has been a really good experience because you have a look from very different angles, looking from the city, looking as an activist, but also looking as like an artist in the city. And like right now in particular, we are seeing like an increase in people wanting to find ways to get involved to help, you know, make change in the community. But a lot of people aren't really sure where to start. Do you have any recommendations for people on how if they're looking to get involved?
That's a good question because we've been marching. The community has been marching. My man Frank Nitty, Khalil, Vaughn Mays, they've been leading marches in the community. My daughter herself has done 2 or 3 of them, Ayana Ellzey. The community has been leading the way, and they've been having marches and things like that. But everybody doesn't march. Everybody is not out front like that. So you can find organizations to donate money to, like the community workforce. My man Vaughn Mays runs that. They use that money to help get people out of jail when they get arrested and things like that. We've also done, in our office, we've done community cleanups. We had a day where we just did 3 different spots throughout the community where we were cleaning up, and we asked for volunteers and people came. We did, after what happened on 40th Street, we went out there, because that's in our district. We went out there and we got Keep Greater Milwaukee together. We got a bunch of community activists together, and we went out there and we cleaned up for the whole day. And we just felt as if we're gonna be out here, you know, protesting and doing everything else, we have to do the other side as well, take care of our community. So those are some of the things that I personally have done. We have a pop-up community cookout and giveaway on the 19th at Johnson Park, ran by the Dream Team, and that's Vaughn and Farina and them, and that all started because, and I may be Vaughn and them to correct me on this, but back on like May 1st, there was an incident on 12th and Locust, where unfortunately all those kids were killed, and so Vaughn and I and Andre Lee Ellis and some other people decided we were, and Alderman Stanford and Cogs and Khalif, we all got together and we said, okay, we're gonna do something to change the narrative. And so we went out and we put together bags that we took to each of the houses in that area. And we had toys in there for the kids and everything, because that's a traumatic experience when something like that happens on your block, where 5 people or 4 people get murdered like that. So we wanted to change the narrative, and that's what people can also do to help, is help change the narrative. Go out and be productive in the community in any way you see fit. Just put in the work. And what we have is a hashtag called We Work. So just put in the work. Go out there and do something productive. You don't have to march. You don't have to do a sit-in, because that's not for everybody. But what you have to do is play a part. Everyone has a role in the struggle. Everyone has a part. People often say, oh, you work for a politician, so you're a politician. Okay, but I'm not. I'm in these streets, and that's what we call it. We call it being in these streets. And by being in these streets, what that means is go be a part of what's going on. Go out there and see what's happening. See for yourself what the protesters are asking for. And quite frankly, the protesters have made it easier for us. Because like I said earlier, a lot of those pieces of legislation that we tried to pass, we couldn't get passed. We couldn't get the support. But when the protesters came out and the people showed that they had enough, now all of a sudden we're getting it. So hopefully it's not performance induced where people are just saying it now because it's hot, because eventually it's all going to die down, and then we'll see how people hold up. So that's what you can do to help. Get in the streets, get involved, put in the work.
Awesome. So thank you for that insight also. All right, so last question, because then we're going to move into like question and answer portion, because we got about 10 minutes left. So outside of everything that has happened with the Black Lives Matter movement, is there anything else from Alderman's office that you'd like to share with us?
Well, Every year we do the big serve. I don't know how we're going to do it this year, but I don't know if we're going to do as many. We have a week of community service that we do in August. You have Bronzeville week, then you would have hip hop week, then you would have our week. Or maybe our week is in the middle. I don't know, but we do it. And what we do is we just do a week of community service. We put in work. Now this year, because of COVID, I don't know how that's going to work, but we will do the big clean. And what the big clean is just a citywide cleanup. It's all across the city. Everybody, we provide bags and garbage and all of that stuff. So that's what when I was just answering the other question, those are the type of things I'm talking about. Putting in the work. Come out and put in the work with us and help clean up the community and show that we are involved, and that by showing that we are involved, it makes those who are watching understand that they just can't, it's not the same game plan as it was before. You're not gonna be able to do things the same way as you did before. So that's what we got coming from our office. Russ is always in the streets. He's always out there talking to people. Anybody that knows him knows that. And anybody that knows me knows they got a hotline to me. A lot of times the activists and things in the streets, they call me if they need something. So that's what we're doing. We're looking forward to partnering with people, working with people, and just being there, listening to the community.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to move over into our question and answer portion. So thank you for participating. And thank you for all the insight that you have given everybody today. I think that this has been really important and a lot of valuable information. So, Barb, do you want questions for us?
Yes, ma'am. We have one question or several questions. And the first one is, how can an average community resident stay in the loop with the Common Council for laws they are trying to get passed? So how can residents be aware of what legislation is being proposed at the Common Council and stay abreast of that?
Well, first of all, they need to be in communication with their alderperson. Make sure that they are, just call them, ask them what's going on. That's the first way. That's the old school way. The new school way is they got something called e-notify. E-notify lets you know of anything that's going on in your area. You can go onto the website, the city website. You can pick and choose what area you want to be notified about. So if there's a new license in your area, if there's new legislation going down that you want to know about, you just pick it, and then you'll get an email notifying you of something that's happening in that area. So if you want to stay abreast to what's going on in the community and what's going on down at City Hall, e-notify is probably the best way of doing it, because sometimes I work in City Hall and I find out stuff on e-notify that I didn't find out walking around City Hall. So it's definitely, I don't know who runs it, but they definitely keep it up to date and they keep it popping. So that's basically the best way to do it.
Great, thank you. Can you give us some more options for how to learn about the various community events? You mentioned stuff in August or cleanups going on. Where can we find that information to stay engaged in other alternative ways to help?
Okay. By getting involved in community organizations, because what we do is we typically partner with community organizations like Near West Side, all these different community organizations, and all these community organizations have community organizers, and we stay in constant communication with them, like with Brittany and Bobby. I see you, Bobby. What's happening? We stay in constant communication with them, and by doing that, we expect them to go out and notify the community. And if they're doing a good job, like these two here are, then the community can be aware of what's going on, and you can be involved. But I say everything starts locally. All politics is local. All community organizations are local. So start on your block, organize your block. Once you've organized your block, connect that to a neighborhood organization, so then you can funnel that information to your neighbors and everybody can know what's going on. That's the best way to do it. Old school sometimes is the best way.
Love it, and thanks for validating our need or what we do every day, because we do agree it's important. Another question: what types of support in regards to financing our aldermen providing for local efforts to create startups that promote change? So wondering what sort of support the aldermen are trying to create for startups for.
Well, it depends on what it is you're trying to start up. We got community development block grant, and Russ used to, as the head of CD, used to be the head of CD. We had to learn a lot about that. Right now that's Khalid, and so it's still, you know, the same type of vibe over there. But with CDBG, there's money available for all types of things. So if you want to be a part of the community, you want to help do something, you start up an organization, and hopefully you talk to Steve Mahan and those guys at the Department of Administration that handle the CDBG funds, and you get you some money. And by doing that, there's a whole, I'm simplifying it obviously, but there's a whole long, lengthy process that you have to take. But there are funds available for people to be able to start organizations, to be able to help their community if that's what they choose to do. I don't know if I answered that question or not. That might have been a critical answer right there.
And then we have two more questions that I'll combine into one. And the first half of it is, what is July 22nd and the voter party selection about? And then the other part is about the importance of voting and alternatives that are available this fall.
First part of that question, I can't answer because I don't know nothing about that. July 22nd and the voter party special. So if somebody else knows something about that, holla at me, let me know. So I'm sorry I can't answer that one. Maybe Russ knows. See, that's why we're a team, because some things I don't know and he may know. And if he knows that, he can put it in the chat, because I know he's somewhere watching. So he can put it in there if he has the answer for that. The other part was, what was the other part of that question?
Alternatives for voting this fall, and what people can do to have their voice heard.
An alternative to voting, as in opposed to voting? Everybody should vote, because voting just means that's how they determine whether who you vote for. I'm not gonna tell you, because I know who you shouldn't vote for, but I'm just gonna say, leave it at that. But voting is important because that's how they determine how much, when I talked about the CDBG stuff and all of that stuff, that's how they determine how much money an area gets, how many people are voting. What are the services this area is gonna get? Are the people voting over here? And right or wrong, it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way that it's set up. It should be just equal across the board, but you know, voting is important, and getting those numbers high and showing that you are involved makes it so that those downtown who are truly career politicians or are truly just trying to appease people, they have to understand they have to appease our community as well, because our community is out there voting. Now, with the COVID stuff that's going on, I did a project not too long ago about this certain situation and voting during the COVID crisis. From what I understand now, we're gonna have more voting places open. We're not just gonna have 3 like last time, which would be great. There was an issue with the appointment of the new election commission head. I didn't mention that. That's one of the, also, let me go back. That's one of the other things that we've been doing, is that we forced any new commissioner or any new director of any department in the city of Milwaukee to have to answer what are they going to do to end systemic racism in their departments. That's one of the things that have come up from Black Lives Matter. We had an issue with the election commission. She didn't want to do it at first, then she got appointed anyway. Hopefully we don't have that happen again, because as a community, we want them to have to answer to us, and we want them to have to answer to the community. That's all I'll say about that. But voting is important, and we'll have more polling places open, and it won't be as difficult. And the second time around, hopefully, we didn't do bad the first time because the people came out. But this time, hopefully, more people come out, and we understand what are the cautions that need to be taken with COVID-19 being out there, and we can get it done again.
Thank you. And then the final is a comment that from one of the folks on the panel today. Would like to thank you and Alderman Stanford for continuing to be visible to our community.
Shout out, Bobby. I saw that question. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Me and Bobby go back. We've been doing this. We've been working. I done seen him go through 2-3 jobs. But what he does is he stays in the community. And Brittany too. And see, what I say to people oftentimes is, if you're in these streets, I'm gonna see you. If you're in these streets, we gonna see you. People are gonna see you, and you're gonna go past these people at some point, and they're gonna recognize you, and you're gonna recognize them, and you're gonna understand that that person is working for the betterment of the community, and that's what you want to see.
Awesome. All right. So with that, we are at time. So what I'm going to do real fast is just screen share really quickly so everybody can get contact information from the Alderman's office. If you had questions and didn't get the chance to get them answered, this will probably be your best way to get them answered moving forward. All right, so contact information is right here. Alderman Ruseel Stanford is Ruseel at milwaukee.gov. The office number is 414-286-3771. So if you are looking to get in contact with their office, here is where you can be reached. Okay, so I just want to take the time to thank everyone who has joined us via Zoom and via Facebook. We appreciate you taking the time out the middle of your day to come and spend a couple of minutes with us. We also want to take the time to thank Dameon for coming on and participating and sharing his viewpoint, also sharing what's happening at the city level for those who may not be aware. So have a great Wednesday, everybody. Again, don't forget this webinar scheduled for Friday with Alderwoman Shatia Lewis talking about reckless driving in the city of Milwaukee. So we will see you on Friday, hopefully. Thank you.